This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by dawsontire and Wheel, your premier ag tire and wheel provider in North America, helping people grow. Tractorzoom, delivering insights, and Dryshod Boots, the official work boot of the Moving Iron Podcast.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast number 190. This week my guest, again, the one and only Aaron Fennell. And we are going to talk about a couple things. Got a couple big auctions coming up. And we also want to talk about some new combines we see happening out there, especially with the X9 making the splash it made on Twitter. So, Aaron, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. I think what you meant to say was, again.
Again.
Little inside joke. Anyway,
Yeah.
No, I'm doing good. it's combine season. It's chopper season. Mm-hmm. It is, if you want to throw it out there, it's grain drill season.
Yeah.
Air seeder season. A lot of seasons.
A lot of seasons.
A lot of SZN, as they say on the Twitter.
Yeah, a lot of seasons for sure. So let's start off with the auction talk here for a minute. And
No way.
No,
For real?
Never talk about it.
Oh my God. Auctions
Yeah.
ain't combines. See, there's
Yeah.
that three-sided dice I was talking
Yeah,
about.
last time, yeah, that's exactly right. So if you go back to Moving Iron Podcast number, I think it was 187, if I remember right. Maybe 186. Don't remember the exact number, but Aaron and I talked about a couple auctions coming up. One is Sullivan's big 2-day dealer on-site consignment auction, but they don't use the word consignment. They use what's their fancy marketing term they use? Dealer, I can't remember. Farmer auction. That's what they use instead of saying consignment. They say farmer auction.
Dealer farmer auction.
Dealer farmer auction. So they leave the word consignment out, which is very, very smart.
Slow clap, boys.
Slow clap. There you go. Good job. And then, so they got that one, and they also have Ag Pro. We talked about that one last time, too. They're having their big dealer consignment auction coming up as well, and that is all their Ohio stores that they're going to do that in. And they had, last time I checked, they had about 45, 47 combines, something like that.
Million.
Yeah.
Right.
They had plenty of combines. They had a handful of tractors and just like...
Lots of heads.
I don't think there were that many, though.
There wasn't like just a couple corn heads, but
Yeah.
a lot of drapers.
I think there were like 6 and 6 and something like that.
Well,
So there wasn't...
never mind the fool then.
The amount of heads versus combines didn't quite marry up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as we step back and take a look at that as well. So.
And did you see your email yesterday?
No.
Van Wall.
Van Wall
is also having one
coming to the table, huh?
And I think it's also in August.
Oh wow, look at that. So I think it's Ag Pro, and then their 2-day deal.
Yeah.
And then when's Van Wall's?
I think right in that
Right in that mix?
A week after maybe.
Right in that mix, huh? Well, let's take a look here. Let's pull up the old
Dun dun dun.
the old web here and take a look and see what we can find. I think that there's a fair amount of activity that we can talk about here as we get down the path of looking at this stuff here. So let me pull this up real quick. The power of the internet. Let's see, here we go. And if you take a look at what we see happening in the great interwebs here, so let's go to
Ag Pro is the 17th. Ooh, online toy auction. That's good stuff.
Can never have too many online toys. That's what she said.
Van Wall is the 25th.
Let's see here. Van Wall's the 25th.
And the 2-day is 27th, 28th.
And when's Ag Pro?
17th.
17th. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at Van Wall's with this. So we discussed what we saw on the last two there. So let's take a look at what we see with Van Wall equipment here. So where's it at? You said it was on the, what day was that one on?
25th, right?
25th.
Because it's the 25th, and then, yeah.
25th, there we go. All right, so if you take a look at what we got here, all right, so here's some tractors they've got. They've got some, okay.
RX,
They've got an RX, a couple RTs, 15s, 17s model stuff, and then you run down here to the combines. You've got an S780, an S690.
Handful of 680s.
Yep, handful of 680s
70
and
series,
heads.
60. 9510 for the win.
So you've got a fair amount of stuff on here, and what that looks like. So I'm sure this list will get bigger. I'm sure this is not the final list as we kind of start to take a look at what's going on there. But I think there is a good opportunity here to see some stuff sell that we haven't seen before. So I wonder if we can.
Yeah, it says on the bottom, list is subject to change with units being traded daily.
Yep. So
it's at Farm Progress Grounds.
Okay, there you go.
That's where their other one was at.
Yeah. So I think there's a.
But it's still just online, so it doesn't really matter where the hell it's at.
Yep. So
unless you're going to go lay hands, then you need to know.
Right. So what about this? Let's talk about this. Is one I want to see. I don't know that I've watched one of these sell yet. If maybe you have, but they have a 2018 712 folding corn head, 12 row 30. Have you seen any of those sell yet?
I have not.
So that's kind of one I've been waiting to see something like that pop up and to see what that looks like.
Folding chopping.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of guys across the country that specific head is kind of really hot.
Yeah. Yeah,
for a $1 billion corn head, there's a lot of guys really interested in it.
Yeah, there's I think what we're seeing here with those, the folding corn head option, I think, is getting to be more important as transport becomes a bigger issue.
Yeah.
Because now you're starting to look at deficiencies and those kind of things that play into that, and now you start looking at a machine that you don't have to take off, you can fold up, it's no wider than the machine is.
Right.
And you can put it in the axis a little bit narrow, but a little more narrow than that. But
you're spread, guys are more and more spread out, there's more and more urban sprawl.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
Yep, so as that stuff starts to take place, you can start seeing these folding corn heads come in there. The guys you're talking to, too, from a trend perspective, how many guys have you talked to about the traditional Stockmaster chopping corn head versus the new chopping rolls that Deere came out with? Has anyone really talked about that much?
I have had no discussions on that.
It's still fairly new, so I don't.
Right.
I mean, I think last year, the year before was the first year for that knife roll set. So
I've been, going all the way back to this was when you were not agriculturally inclined at this point in life, but
well, it was yesterday. So
in the mid '80s, late '80s, Pixall Company come out with stock rolls for the old 843s and whatnot, and it looked like a ninja weapon essentially.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it had I want to say maybe 8 sharpened blades on it.
Okay.
And it was wild, and that was supposed to, do a better job than the old John Deere stock rolls, where it would leave a stalk about 6 foot tall, no ear on it, but
right.
It would, the old school tapered cast rolls.
Right.
So they come out with that roll to process the stalk better and all that kind of stuff. Well, guys still shredded.
Right.
It's just I know guys that try to get as aggressive of a roll as you can, but they still do something with the stalks.
Right.
I know a couple guys that have done all the different rolls. They've even had 3 different colors of corn heads, and at the end of the movie, they are running a chopping head.
Right.
So that's kind of where that's at. I don't think if you want your stalks chopped at harvest, then I think that's the only thing you can do is run that chopping head.
Right.
Now, what I've seen a couple guys on the Twitterverse do, a couple customers of mine down south, they run a chopping head and then those Yetter Devastators that roll on the ground behind the head. That's pretty slick.
Yeah.
That's ready to roll type of shit.
Yeah, more and more guys. Residue management, not that it wasn't very a hot button issue to start with, it's getting to be more of an issue that guys are really starting to figure out what they're trying to do.
Yep.
I know guys that look at the residue management they put in the field as far as how they finish the crop when it comes through. for a lot of that is some guys like to chop it because then it's easier to just come in and windrow it and bale it, and there's less. It's just easier for it to process and those kind of things. So I don't know. There's a lot of different aspects out there that are being played into this that are growing. The idea too, the chopping rolls that we see on these machines now they're doing a similar job to what you see an actual Stockmaster do, without the horsepower limitations that you would need to have to run that part of the head.
Right.
So,
but you still got that nub. You still got a stock after the fact, because it's not going to pull it out of the ground and chew it up and spit it back out. So,
yep. So it'll be a interesting to see how that adaptation plays into it. So let's think about this for a minute. So Deere rolls out their new X9 combine.
Oh goodness!
Deere rolls out their new X9 combine.
Hashtag.
And I think there's
holy shit.
Yeah, there's a big stir on Twitter about that and what we saw happen there with that. And as you look at that machine, the machine's not going to be used by everybody, right? It's going to be a machine for a guy that's a large acreage farmer, and
very large.
And the way I look at it is, if you're running 2 or 3 780 combines, you could probably take an X9 and mute 2 of those 780s and have one 780 running around. On paper, in a perfect world where there's in a vacuum, where there's no weather considerations or anything like that, you could substitute one of those machines for 2 780s. But out in our neck of the woods, October 15th rolls around, and from October 15th through Halloween, there's a high likelihood that we could have a 100-year blizzard and or a freeze situation or something like that, where weather really starts to play a high demand on what you need to do in the field. So I think you could take one of those machines and do it. The nice thing about that is, if you did take that and replace it to 8 Class 8 combines, you would have all the support equipment already, right? I think that's the part of the conversation too that I think is being left out of this, is that you're going to have a machine out there that you can't just have 3 grain carts and a couple trucks and those kind of things. I mean, you're talking about a machine that's 1.5 times as big as a 790. I mean, so take that into perspective. Now, this isn't the first Class 10 combine to hit the marketplace. I mean, Kloss has had a Class 10 combine for a while. New Holland has a Class 10, don't they?
I don't. They might.
I think they do, but maybe But that's kind of it in a nutshell. So the Class 10 combine thing is there. The thing about this machine that we're seeing now is, comparatively to the other machines, is what comes standard from technology perspective.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so now you start talking about, you have the premium activation that comes through there. You got your RTK, you've got your circle track, all these different things that come into that. Machine sync is now part of that, and that is something that we haven't seen. I was waiting to see how that was going to play into the mix, and quite frankly, with that machine and the on-farm labor expectations that you see happening, you don't have to have the most experienced person in the grain cart anymore.
Right.
Running that grain cart, right? Because the combine takes control of it, steers it, makes it do what it's supposed to.
Yep.
The guy in the combine has to nudge it back and forth, and what comes along with that. So,
and everything, while you're on the technology piece of it, everything's fully integrated, just
right.
like the receiver in the cab, just like the new 8Rs.
Yep. Yeah, so there's the technology perspective there. So
we took the receiver off of that tractor, so there's a hole in the roof, but that doesn't go with the trade. Yes, it does.
It has to, or water's going to get in the cab. So they have. So I guess as you step back and take a look and all the things that we see there, the amount of efficiencies that you're gaining with any, not just the X9, but any of the new 20 model year 7 Series combines, all that kind of stuff. That same technology package gets put on those as well. They also have a 3-year maintenance program, a 3-year wear part program. That's all part of that now as far as the power guard goes. So now you kind of start looking at taking these machines, and you're looking at it from a perspective of, I'm going to go out and run these machines. I'm going to put some hours on them. I'm going to use them, and not necessarily trade them every year that we've seen happen in the past. Because quite frankly, the used equipment marketplace, I don't know who's going to buy it. I mean, if you take the X9 combine and you put 1 year worth of use on it, you bring it in and trade, and you kind of evaluate the same apples to apples as you would a 780 or 790 or 770 or something like that, and the same level of depreciation.
9610.
9610, exactly. That used X series combine is going to be as much as a new 780.
First
Pretty
of
close.
all, I sure as hell hope not. And second of all,
After 1 year, like, we're talking like you go out and put 300 hours on it.
right.
So I mean, it's how's the used equipment marketplace going to respond to that?
The first couple of those will be wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Because somebody wants that sumbitch, but they don't want that new price.
Yeah.
They will be the guy who buys that X9 for used X9,
Right.
300-hour machine, whatever, for the new 780 price because it's a combine and a half, as
Yeah.
you said.
But I don't think that anyone's gonna. I don't.
The multi-unit guys and the guys that are tied in with a trade, they're not who it's going to be. There are big operators who buy 1-year-old used shit
I
on
agree.
purpose.
But I don't think there's going to be. I really don't think there's going to be a lot of dealers out there lining up to say, "All right, we'll trade your X9 every year."
No, I get that.
But you also go, let's put this. In
And then
perspective.
reality happens
Yeah.
and you trade for 5.
Well, but let's put it in perspective, though. I mean, I think anyone listening to this, if you step back and talk about the customers that in your honestly step back and think about it, the customers that you have in your side of your area of responsibility that you're going to go sell a new combine to, I bet you can count them on one hand and take about 2 fingers out of the conversation and have about 3 customers that you're going to go talk to about it next month.
Yeah.
I mean, I can legitimately say, yeah, we got the acres, we got the support equipment, we got the people, we got all that stuff that's involved in it to make that machine run efficiently.
Right.
Right. This is not a, you sell 80 new combines a year, and 78 of them weren't an X9.
Right. But you're exactly right.
Yeah.
If we're basing on logic,
Right.
a lot of shit happens with logic nowhere near it. Because, oh my God, there's a used X9.
No, I agree. The X9, the used X9,
And that neighbor I
marketplace,
can't stand doesn't have one.
right?
So here we go.
Well, I think
You're gonna have a pissing match, and somebody's gonna get an X9
Yeah.
because they can.
Right. Well, yeah, and I agree with that logic. But here's the same thing: that guy that's got an X9 and was running a Class 8. That investment just got bigger because you don't have the support equipment to make it operate, unless you go make the investment for the support side of the
But
equipment.
right, there's plenty of combines sold where that's not taken into account anyway. You see
Nothing
tons
like this.
Huh?
Nothing like this. If you go from a Class 7 to a Class 8, that's not a dramatic change. As dramatic change, right? You might need to pick up like another half a grain cart to make it work, right?
Right.
I mean, fortunately, they don't sell half grain carts. You got to buy a whole one. But the concept being is that it's not just an astronomical jump, right? From an 8 class 8 combine to the X9, you're looking at, you're jumping from 2.5 times the machine as far as volume goes across the entire spectrum.
Yeah, I get that, but
So what I'm saying is that this
I'm not
machine's
gonna
not
say-
for everybody, man. I mean, even
Yeah.
a used one, this machine is not going to be for everybody.
right.
But I think the ones that can utilize a machine like this and still have the extra machine out there to kind of keep ahead of the weather and do what they're doing and make things happen, it's going to be a great addition to their fleet, right? But at the end of the day,
You know what I'd
it's
like
not
to see?
Not everybody's an X9.
I'd like to see custom harvesters get X9s.
Jeez.
No, listen, hear me out. And then they'll haul them sons of bitches on the road with like those 18 axle trailers that's
Right.
actually 3 different trailers.
Right, yeah.
Because of the weight and the axles.
Yeah, that'd be a long train going down the road.
That would be exciting,
Yeah.
though.
You'd have like 100 feet of
Pulling them 40 mile an hour with heavy haul trucks and shit,
50-foot heads on the back of that.
Yeah.
So now you're looking at, it's like a Mad Max scenario.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Why not?
You can just pull 200 feet down the road.
Yeah.
Call it great.
Yeah.
But no, so I think
Pretend we're in Australia, like
Exactly.
their land trains or whatever.
Exactly. So I think the X9 is going to be it's going to have a really good splash in the market, but it's going to be a certain group of guys are going to be able to use it.
You know what's exciting? Here's what I would like to have happen, right? So they add that wear item package into PowerGuard on the X9, right?
Mm-hmm.
After 2 years of the mothership handing over a shitload of fancy green painted augers because they're wearing out because that thing eats so much, they then develop augers made out of the flighting's made out of like 1 inch and call it like a lifetime auger, and then it's hardened to yet, and then it'll be it becomes the combine that doesn't wear out. How badass would that be?
You can start seeing carbon fiber parts that are lightweight and last a lot longer.
But I don't know that carbon fiber would be a good choice on an auger, would it?
Well, I'm just saying. I know it's a very dense, lightweight material that they build fast cars out of.
It's true.
And the brakes last longer and stuff. So I'm sure that
the brakes last
carbon fiber brakes.
John Deere has bought Tesla to make augers.
To make augers, right? That's what you'll see come out of this too. Is you're going to start seeing wear items that have things taken into consideration that are going to be, what it is. Because you're talking about a machine now that's the amount of volume that's going through that rig. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're talking, just...
I can't wait for the DB120 Cornhead to come out. Or actually it'd be a CH120. I think then you got it.
Yeah.
Little, like, say, some 30 moisture corn for a feedlot.
Yeah.
48 rows of it. Bring it on in.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy on Twitter 6 months ago. I did a podcast about kind of what the future of equipment, what it looks like, and I'm a big fan of as automation and autonomy takes hold, that they're going to be smaller machines, more in the field. And this guy was telling me they're going to have 160-foot corn heads, 160-foot draper heads. And I'm like, what?
160
foot.
Do you get it there and unroll it?
I don't know how. I don't know how do you truck that from field to field? No, I'm sorry, not 160, 120. Sorry, I don't want to misspeak. It's 120.
Yeah. Damn, I wish we could grab them extra 16 rows, but they just don't fit.
You start thinking about you have to fold it up somehow, but then keeping down pressure, and then, gauge wheels and everything out on the outside.
Well, it'd be a mess. Think of the used market.
Yeah.
In the current world, a 35 is more desirable than a 40. God forbid a 45.
Well, that's also when you start thinking about the transition of the marketplace, though, right? As things transition and operations get bigger and those kind of things take place, I think the vision of the producer is going to be more of that, like a guy building a road, right? The idea being that here's my project, here's the material that I need to have to make that project work, and then here's the inherent costs that I'm going to have go along with that, i.e. machinery. And that's also part of the material that I'm going to need to have make that work. So as you start going down that path, I'm not really worried about the overall price tag of the piece of equipment. I'm more worried about what's it going to cost me that year to produce that crop. So the financing, those kind of things are going to start playing a bigger role. And as that starts to play a bigger role, the useful life of a piece of equipment isn't necessarily based on how many hours I put on it, right? It's more used on how many jobs am I going to use that piece of equipment for before I say, okay, I've met my depreciation schedule, or I've met my, bang for my buck usefulness of that piece of equipment before it costs me X dollars to go back in and put new augers in it, or whatever it is that you're doing. That kind of mindset is going to take hold and move things forward. My personal opinion.
That's pretty deep.
I've been giving that some thought lately.
Boy, I guess.
Now,
real quick, I just got to throw you under the bus a minute.
All right, cool.
We're sitting here talking about the
backing up.
Yeah. You're sitting here talking about the X9, and then pretty soon you interjected that there's going to be more machines, smaller and automated.
Well, the X9 is the domain. The reason the X9 exists the reason a Class 8 model combine exists or a Class 9 model combine exists is because it's lack of labor. That labor keeps shrinking every. I mean, the first custom harvest crew took 2.5 ton pickups and drove their combines on the back of them and drove them around the country that way.
Yeah.
Right, because they had 65 of them to go out and cut one wheat field. Right. Right. But they also had 150 people to go out and do that.
Oh, look, there's our train full of combines.
So now as you look at what you see happening now with the size of equipment, it has everything to do with you have to do the exact same amount of acres with less help.
Right. Which, that trumps my thought with it, because my argument is I would, in that 3 780 scenario, I'd keep the 3 780s if you can have the help. Because if you're that big of an operation, you got 3 of those, you're probably in like regions, so to speak. And if you got one at the west region, one in the middle region, and one at the east region, and you got a couple trucks and a grain cart for each combine, you're going to get a hell of a lot more done than you will with that one X.
Right.
However, I just listed at least 3 drivers, and that's saying the truck driver hops back and forth as there's a full truck.
Right.
So that's 9 people.
For one combine.
For 3 combines.
When you look at it from that perspective, and that overall arching size of deal that you got going there,
Right.
now you got to remember you got a combine driver plus the grain carts,
Right.
plus the guy driving the trucks, right? So how many grain carts are you going to have for one combine? Keep that machine rolling, keep it efficient.
Which combine?
The 780.
One 1300.
Okay, so you got one 1300 running back and forth. How many trucks?
2 trucks.
Depending on how far you're away, though.
Yeah.
What if you're 40 miles from where you're dumping?
Then you probably need to let that ground go and get some ground closer to the elevator. just so Aaron Finnell's combine scenario works.
Right. But that's the overarch. That's what you got to start considering when you look at it.
Maybe it's just going to a feedlot. Maybe you got bins in the pivot corner.
Right. Okay, so when you are 40 miles away and you're trying to get everything to work right, and I get it, you want to go back in and do all that fun stuff that we've talked about. The idea, even if you farm, let's say you're fortunate enough to farm 10 square miles, right? Let's say you're a big operator, you got however many acres that would be, you 64,000 acres or whatever that would be at that point. But if you farm that and it's your area and you're within 10 miles of where you're at, you still need to have more support equipment than you think you will because of time to load, time to unload of the truck coming out of the grain. So where do baggers and unbaggers, grain baggers, start playing a point in this scenario when you start talking about combines?
The short answer for that is wherever they want, as long as they're never traded in. Ever.
I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Yeah.
At the end of the field, dumping it and then coming back and picking it up after you're done with harvest.
Yeah, I get that.
From logistics. Because then all of a sudden, now you don't have...
You don't have any trucks.
Don't have any trucks. You have trucks, but you don't need them during harvest.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. Obviously, you have trucks. I mean, at harvest, you don't need any trucks.
Right.
You got an X9, and you got...
Well, even a 780, or a 790, or a...
9650.
9650, whatever.
6600.
105.
105 corn special.
Whatever you want.
I am really proud of you that you knew 105. Great job. I can see that because I know where I grew up, southeast, south central Nebraska, any chance you can to cart to the bin, everybody does it as much as possible. I have been part of an operation where we carted to the bin 4 miles. And
how many miles did you say?
4.
4, okay. I thought you said 40. I was like, what?
No, that'd be a long trip.
Right.
And it is the absolute peak of efficiency.
Right.
You just go. I mean, you could knock shit out like you can't believe.
Right.
The bag would be that every field is carting to the bin. So you're at peak efficiencies. Mm-hmm. The trouble is, harvest is one phase of the whole year.
Right.
Okay? So then you got all winter to fight them bags and get shit out of the bags and do all that. And there's guys that are diehard grain baggers, and I'm not trying to talk down on anybody because I have never unloaded a grain bag. I can't believe it's any worse than running a frickin' sweep auger, which usually happens in the summer. So maybe you're right. Maybe. Don't get carried away. But maybe you're right, and that becomes hotter and hotter. Just for pure efficiencies.
Right. I think the grain bagger plays a great role in this scenario as operations get more spread out. When you're getting further away from your on-farm storage or elevator storage or whatever it is that you're doing, plus you start looking at your marketing plan. I mean,
that's why there are guys. I know guys in different parts of the world actually do this. Okay. And this is based off of a pivot. So the guys in Illinois that have a 300-acre field of black dirt, I don't know what to tell them at this point. This goes off of a pivot. If you know, I know plenty of guys that done this. You got your standard 135-acre circle, right? In a square 160-acre field, a quarter. And you take that pivot at what you hope to someday achieve for bushels on that pivot, and you put a grain bin in the corner.
Okay.
Yeah, grain bins aren't cheap, but they take very little time to pay for themselves.
Right.
In all reality.
Yeah.
And it don't have to be anything special. You know, you don't have to have stirrator and dryer and all that kind of shit. I mean, it's just a storage
bin. It's just holding bin.
Right.
Yep. That makes sense.
I know guys that have done that, and that's, you know, then you're carting to the bin, and you're not. A deer can go rub up on that bin all he wants. He's not gonna
rip a hole.
He's not gonna rip a hole in the bin. If he does, I would like to tag him and find him later, because that's gonna be pretty badass.
That's gonna be a rather large.
His antlers look like a can opener.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. So
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. There's all kinds of different things for efficiency. And if you get in the right scenario, the right crop, the right day, the right time, all that kind of stuff, I can see 1X9 instead of 2 8s. Mm-hmm. But
I think that's working in a vacuum.
Right, you know what I mean? Right. Most of the time you're going to be, but it all comes down to labor.
Right.
You know?
And that's kind of the point of this deal here is that you take a look at
you're getting rid of labor, and labor is the number one issue usually.
Yep. I mean, along with all the fun things that come along with that, you know, technology exists because labor restrictions are getting less and less, right? There's getting to be less and less people to come back to the farm and work.
Right.
There's getting to be less and less just overall just trying to find any labor. I think if we did a poll on here, like what's your biggest concern as a operator, it's probably commodity prices, and then labor is probably the second one, would be my guess.
Yeah.
And then probably something to do with succession planning and those kind of things.
You know, speaking of that labor thing, there are guys out there who haven't driven a tractor in 15 years. That just popped in my head as you mentioned technology and the labor, and guy don't have to drive a tractor straight anymore. You don't even have to drive it. Here, sit this and watch the buzzers and the sensors.
Right. Yeah. Another thing too is there's more and more guys out there that are, as operations grow and things happen, that the guy actually stroking the check's not even
right
in the tractor.
Right.
It's hired hand, whatever it might be, and they're as for a sales guy, your best sales pitch anymore is not necessarily to the guy writing the check. It's you want the guy driving the tractor that likes the creature features of it and the comfort or the refrigerator or whatever it is.
Yep.
Gotta get that refrigerator.
You pick the right guy in the middle.
Yeah.
And get with him
right.
because odds are he is been there long enough, is trusted enough, whatever. He's
a great influencer.
Yeah. He's got as much say-so. Yeah. He has the say-so. The other guy writes a check.
Right.
Typically. Not always.
Yep. And most
because I know other huge farms where everything's power shift 1300. Because the guy writing the check is a doctor, a lawyer. He don't even see the shit.
Right.
And boom, it's a tractor. Good enough. Done.
Yep. So then on the flip side of that, the other people that may not be driving, they're looking at the efficiencies and how fast they can, like you said, go from point A to point B and get everything done before Snowmageddon hits.
Right.
And that's sometimes you can do that. But back to like your 3 combine thing, if you have those out working in 3 different fields, you can pull all 3 of those together and go knock out with the area that's going to be affected by the storm, right? If you're that spread out, right? And start looking at how those logistics start to play into all that.
Yeah. I still, and you can do that. I mean, hell, you can put all 3 in a pivot corner if you want to have a demo derby. But I still think you're more efficient spread out.
Oh, I agree. But if you're in an area like where we're at, where pivot irrigation is a big thing,
right?
And you've got, an area that's got 10 or 15 pivots, and those 10 or 15 pivots are going to be, affected by looking at the forecast by a snowstorm or whatever else.
And the other 100 aren't.
Yeah.
Those I get it.
You take those 3 and you go knock out those
right.
in a day. Not a day, but a few days worth of work. You got those knocked out.
Right.
And then that's where your grain bagger comes in, and you bag them at the end of the field or whatever it is, and kind of go from there.
That's true. At least we're not in the carpet business.
That's right.
Don't want to deal with any carpet baggers.
That's right.
Just grain baggers.
Just grain baggers. That's right.
But
good one. Take that act on the road.
Hey, real quick, just because everybody's out there, because you haven't brought it up yet, and I'm very disappointed.
What?
Before we started recording, and we were talking a little bit about the X9 and the 3 versus 1, and keep an extra. Casey's comment was, "Well, keep an extra 680, and then you can use it to open up the fields."
Yeah, open them up. It's like a bigger version of a. But as cheap as they've gotten, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a pleasant thought.
Yeah. So.
We'd bring that up toward the end of the podcast.
Right.
Yep.
Pop everyone's balloon at the end.
Right.
That's what I always say. All right, man. Good stuff as usual, Aaron. People want to reach out to you. What's the best way to do that?
Fairly active on the Twitterverse at Aaron Fintel. Probably that's where a lot of guys reach out to me at. Or my telephone number is 308-760-1193, and you can call me or text me on that anytime.
Right on. And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Also check out movingironllc.com for all the latest news concerning Moving Iron. And on that note, I have had to cancel the Moving Iron podcast that was coming, or Moving Iron podcast, the Moving Iron Summit that was coming up here September 1 through 3 in Nashville due to the COVID-19 stuff. And I've got that rescheduled for January of 21. Dates are the 20th through the 22nd. Same hotel, same information. I probably have to get a new link and stuff, but check that out. I'll have that up here this weekend on my website, so you can look at that stuff and get re-registered. And I'm gonna throw this out there that anybody that's a dealer that wants to come to that, irregardless of manufacturer or whatever it might be, hit me up and let me know if you're interested in coming. Should be great information, a lot of good information out there that comes. So let me know if you'd like to come to that. Also, check out the Global Ag Network and the great podcasters on there as well. And some Moving Iron podcast news. I am going to move Moving Iron podcast markets to its own feed, so you should see that coming up here real soon. And as well as Moving Iron podcast tax news, Glenn Birnbaum will have its own feed. And I am going to also start a new podcast that has to do with kind of the inner workings of a dealership that'll have its own feed as well. So, Moving Iron podcast will be what you've grown to know and love, talking about what's happening in the equipment world as well as auction markets and those kind of things. Have guests on from other areas. So, looking forward to see how that works. So, you should see about 4 different feeds of the Moving Iron podcast pop up. So, Looking forward to having that start here, hopefully the first part of September. Anyway, so with that, I am Casey Seymour with Aaron Fintel. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving higher in the 21st century.